All right, it is Tuesday, March 29th. It is 1 o'clock Eastern Time, and this is Advancement Live. I am joining you from Syracuse University, where we are extremely proud of both our men's and women's basketball teams heading off to the Final Four. So I was just telling my guests today, I am starting to run out of orange, but that's a good problem to have. So I'm Kim Brown, and on today's live broadcast, we're going to talk about class notes. Now, obviously, these are these key life events that alumni really want to share with their classmates, and it's our job to connect alumni with their community, with each other. And so today we're going to talk about how to make that connection compelling. How do we do that in the digital age? So this is not just using our magazine anymore, where we've historically shared these class notes, but thinking about new ways. So in just a moment, I'm going to introduce you to some senior leadership and strategists from iModules, the sponsor of today's show, along with Fordham University and Clemson University. And we're going to look beyond the alumni magazine at these innovative ways to share job news from our alumni, wedding news, and of course the cutest pictures are new baby news that our alumni like to share. So first, though, I want to do a shout out to our sponsors. Advancement Live is part of the Higher Ed Live network. It offers viewers direct access to the best and brightest minds in higher education. And these live broadcasts really allow viewers to share knowledge and participate in great conversations, great discussions about the most important issues in the industry. Today's live viewing experience is powered by Maestro, the premier marketing tech platform for broadcasters, and all episodes of Advancement Live are free. They're accessible in the video archives, and they're at higheredlive.com. They're also available on iTunes. Today's episode is made possible by iModules. You can get the latest white paper from iModules to learn about online giving trends in higher education, including the very popular 24-hour giving campaigns, crowdfunding, average gift sizes, and a whole lot more. And we did just tweet that link where you can download the paper. So be sure you're following Higher Ed Live on Twitter, as well as the hashtag Higher Ed Live. Higher Ed Live is produced by M. Stoner. It's a marketing and communications firm that works with education institutions on branding and strategy and web design and so much more. And if you're preparing for a website redesign project, you need to know that your website, obviously it needs a lot of help, but getting started on how to fix it is really the challenge. And that is where downloaders M. Stoner's helpful 7-step checklist can come into play, get you on the right path for a successful website redesign. So now I will shush and I will introduce my guests for this afternoon's broadcast. One is with us all the way from Germany, Mirko Wiedenhorn. Mirko is Senior Account Manager and Client Consultant at iModules Software. And prior to joining iModules, he worked at Wilkes University as the Director of Alumni Relations and Annual Giving. And at iModules, he consults with clients to help them meet their strategic goals using Encompass. And he has his bachelor's degree from Drew University, his master's degree from the College of Europe. And then we have Sarah Hunt Munoz coming to us from Fordham University. She is Director for Strategic Initiatives in Fordham University's Office of Alumni Relations. Prior to that, she was Associate Director for Regional Outreach and Administration at Fordham University. She really likes Fordham. She has a bachelor's degree and a master's degree from, you guessed it, Fordham University. And last but not least, a fellow fan of Orange, Dana Morgan. A different Orange, but that's okay. We can be pals on this call. Dana is Associate Executive Director of Marketing and Special Initiatives and Alumni Relations at Clemson University, and her role is to effectively connect Clemson University alumni with their fellow Tigers and then back with their alma mater. And Dana has both her bachelor's degree and a master's degree. She too, I sense a theme here. I work for Syracuse. I went to Syracuse. You went to Syracuse. You worked for Clemson, and Sarah as well. So this is a great group of guests. Thank you all for taking your Tuesday afternoon to join this episode. And I just want to remind folks who are watching that if you have any questions, if you have anything to add to the conversation, if you're doing something particularly neat in sharing alumni news, please tweet it to us. Use the hashtag HigherEdLive because we are really excited to learn from each other. So I am going to start by asking all three of my guests. And Mirko, since you're in Germany, and just because, you can go first. So when we say... You win, ding, ding, ding. So when we say class notes, what comes to mind? And I'm going to ask that question to all of our guests today.
So I think for me, it's a couple of things. So obviously there's the idea of sharing news, right? So everybody knows about the back of the magazine that is usually the most read, where there are all these excerpts of news. But I also tend to look at it from a more, I guess, strategic direction in a way, in terms of how class notes can be used to engage constituents with your website. And so seeing class notes as a way to get them to your site and get them looking at what you have on the site. So almost as a tool to drive traffic to your website. So beyond, obviously, what class notes itself is, which is wonderful news about alumni.
Awesome. Sarah, how about you?
Similarly, you know, we partnered with iModules about a year ago, and we have class notes on Forever Fordham, which is our alumni website. We have it behind authentication. So it's a way to get people to log into our website and become part of the online community, and then check out the class notes. So like Mirko said, it's sort of a driver to the website. But it's also, you know, people think of class notes as kind of an old-fashioned way of sharing, you know, in the clunky magazine that you get twice a year or whatever. But I feel like in this day and age, people are more inclined to share. You know, what used to be private is now public. So it's just another way for you to tell your friends and friends of friends, you know, what's going on in your life. So it's nice that we've moved it from the magazine online. And I think more people are actually utilizing it now because we're in the age of share and share alike, kind of.
And I will touch base on that too later in the broadcast about how do we, when we're getting all these gems in through our website, how do we then make sure that they get over to the editors of our magazine? And we've kind of gone back and forth on how we do that, and then all the different schools and colleges, how they find out. But we'll touch base on that later on in the episode. Dana, anything to add for what defines class notes?
Well, I think that, you know, the definition of class notes has sort of evolved over time. You know, it used to be a way for those who live far away to share with, you know, their friends and classmates from years past what's going on in their life, especially through the magazine. But as print has started declining, our magazine print has started, it's been cut back from 12 to 3. You know, it's a way for these people who are losing that outlet to express themselves without having to use social media for it, I guess. It's a way to connect directly with those people from the university that they feel most attached with. And of course, this day and age in social media, especially with millennials, being able to have that 15 seconds of celebrity fame, to be able to tell the world what great things they are doing, it's almost that moment of spotlight for alumni.
I agree with you on millennials wanting to share their news. We see that for sure. I'm surprised too in improving our class notes so that we do have a lot of alumni who, you know, are not of the millennial age that want to share what's going on with them as well. But that's a nice transition into this age of social media when, you know, I feel like I don't even want to pick up the phone to connect with classmates anymore because I know who's been engaged, who just had a baby, who's gotten married, yada, yada, yada from Facebook. So how do we, and this is a question for all of you again, how do we entice alumni to share their news with us through our websites, through what we're going to look at Tigers on the Move, which is Clemson's site, and we're going to look at Forever Fordham as well. How do we entice them to share there when they're already sharing so much on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook and every other platform out there? Dana, do you want to start on that one?
Sure. Well, I think for us, what we have found is that we sort of tap into this new era of alumni who no longer connect themselves directly with a class year, but almost more with multiple class years. So it's over a group of 5 to 7 years, depending on how long they're here, if they do their graduate studies here as well, or what have you. But it basically gives them an opportunity to reach those that they haven't found on social media, because there's still a number of people who have not embraced social media in some way, shape, or form. But I think from our perspective, we've almost given them a little bit more of a spotlight platform, because when we built Tigers on the Move, we built it in a way that we could share it through a variety of ways and reach a larger audience. I apologize, I shut down my email here, but that gives them an opportunity to share with a much larger audience than they would reach with just their traditional social media outlets.
That's right. Sarah, anything to add to that?
Yeah, we actually have an in memoriam component to our class notes. So we're able to post people who have recently passed away, and we also have a form that people can fill out, an obituary form that family or friends can fill out, notifying the university when someone does pass away. So it's just an alternative to the regular class notes. It's just we kind of bundled them together, class notes and in memoriam, and it's gotten a lot of views, and a lot of people are notifying the university that way.
And Mirko, iModules will work with schools directly on, what they're looking for. I mean, not every class note section, I know because I had major envy in looking at Sarah's, not every class note section of a website will look exactly the same, correct?
Oh, of course not. And it's really dependent on what the school is looking for, right, and what you want to achieve with that section of your site, and again, how you're driving traffic to that section, where you want to drive traffic from that section. All of those things are things that you want to take into account. I did just want to add to what Dana said as well. I think it is, yeah, they want to connect with people in the surrounding years, the shoulder years, but I think it's also based on activities they may have participated in. So maybe they were on the tennis team in college, right, or some other athletic organization, and then to connect via class notes to other members of that team in some way. I think there's also value there, even if they may not have even played on a team with them. Maybe they were part of that group 5 or 6 years ago. But all of these affinity groups, right, that's all that we talk about now. I think there's huge opportunity there for class notes. Again, you won't necessarily connect with those people on social media because they may not be your friends. But class notes allows you to reach that population and connect with them. And then I think the other element to class notes that I'm starting to see more and more institutions use is really to push it for networking purposes as well. So I mean, your online directory is potentially one source of networking, but I think class notes is another opportunity for them to just see what other alumni are up to and connect with them for job networking opportunities, which, talking about millennials, we know that that's really what they're looking for.
Awesome. So Dana, I know this is a spiel you've done a time or two, but if you could tell us a little bit about how, and you might want to share your screen now so folks who are not familiar with Tigers on the Move can see what that looks like. How did that come to be? It is obviously extremely comprehensive. It's super easy to search. So what went into the process of building this site, and how has it been received by alumni?
So basically, we came up with Tigers on the Move because we had a situation where we were running out of funding to support the full 12 issues of our alumni magazine, and we still had alumni constantly sending us updates, sharing their job news, their marriage news, their new Tiger Cub news, and those types of things. And we wanted to be able to continue to share that information, but with only 3 issues, we had very limited space.
Right.
When we were developing this, we also wanted to take into consideration, very much so, our millennial audience. The main reason being that we are slightly over the 50% mark of our alumni being under the age of 40. And as we continue to age as a university, that less than 10 years out group continues to grow more and more. Only 15 years ago did we have just 15,000 students on campus, and now we're over 21,000 students, and we are growing every year. So every time we have a graduation, that millennial age group of people continues to expand and outgrow some of our older alumni. So that being said, when we were thinking about our alumni, we wanted to do something that connected directly with them. And this idea of social media and even sort of a Pinterest feel is what came to mind when we were developing this. We wanted to make sure they had an opportunity to be able to not only just share their news, but also give it a category and be able to identify themselves based on where they currently live. You'll see here we have a slider for graduation year, so you can search based on what year you might want to, find information. And telling the story is very easy. It's a very simple form, and we're actually expanding this. I'm excited to say, to go back to something that Merrick just said. We're going to be adding groups, so all of our affinity groups, our Greek organizations, some of our alumni special interest groups, so that people can also insert themselves a tag for that group, and that they will be able to connect to even a larger audience than they had been before. So you'll see it's growing. It's been around for a little over, I think it's a year and a half now, and we've got every type of update you can possibly think of, from also our Golden Tiger reunion. They've started using this as their platform for connecting with their other reunioners before they come to campus. So it's been an exciting platform for us. It continues to grow. It has a lot of special options to it about shareability, where we can go in here and we can actually, add this to our social media sites. I can even choose to be the Alumni Association, post it to the Facebook wall of the organization. And every Tuesday, I do something called Tigers on the Move Tuesday. It's a hashtag that I use. And I congratulate individuals on whatever update they've shared with us. So it tags them, it puts it on their social media, puts it on our social media, and gives it a little bit more life. So it expands the visibility of that update. And I also have my alumni newsletter, which I had built by the same company that built this platform for me, where through an RSS feed, I can, just by the click of a button, add at any point in time any of these to our alumni newsletter to share to our 90,000 plus email addresses.
Holy moly, it's fantastic. It really is. And you touched on it a little bit with giving these stories more life. And I'll loop Sarah in on this question as well. When you get a gem through this, when you find out that, we had an alum who was, I can't even remember the specific story that she shared. She had been a Remembrance Scholar. She finally got citizenship here in the United States. She had been a Scotland citizen. And we ended up putting it in our news website once I got that class note, and then the BBC ended up picking it up. How do you, when you get those gems, what's the next step? Something that rises to the level of, whoa, this should be a big story.
Well, for Fordham, we collaborate with marketing on the class notes. So one of our editors and myself are notified when a class note is submitted. So we're both seeing them as they come in, which is great because if we do get a gem, he's also the editor of our magazine. So he and I then have a conversation about what is the best platform to make this a bigger story. Do we put it in our e-newsletter? Is it one of our spotlights? Or is it a profile piece for our website? So he and I, as they come in, can have those conversations about what the next step from this gem is.
Is that similar for you, Dana?
Somewhat. We obviously share back and forth. The editor of the magazine is housed in a completely separate department, so we suggest material. However, one of the greatest things about Tigers on the Move is it has approval process, so it sends a notification to me that someone has submitted a story, and so I review it to make sure it's appropriate, and once I hit approve, it actually packages everything up with the picture included in it, and it automatically sends it to the editor of our magazine, so she gets a copy of the story as well to determine whether or not it's something that she wants to include in the magazine and expand on.
Processes, these are great. This is what we like to hear. Mirko, I'll loop you in on the approval process. What would you say with the schools that you work with through iMods, the schools that decide to put this behind, login versus schools that just leave their class notes open? I guess when they leave them open, they're still doing some approval on the back end, right?
Right, I would assume so. I have to say most of the clients we work have it behind login actually. With the idea that it could still be considered personal information, that they're just sharing it with that community of individuals. So it's not out there for the world to see. And I think that helps set it apart from some social media in a way too, because once it's on social media, we know that it's everywhere. So I think most of the schools that we work with actually decide to put class notes behind login. But to Dana's point earlier, we also have an RSS feed that a lot of schools pull into email communications so that in the e-newsletter, people will see all of the class notes that have been submitted in the last however many days or whatever it is. So it's a way to engage people who may not have logged in to look at class notes recently, but then go to the site and take a look. I do think there are a couple of schools we work with who have it in front of login, but like I said, For the most part, the ones I'm aware of, it's behind login.
Right. So you sent some school examples. Fordham is one of them. So we're going to share those out on at Higher Ed Live right now. But what are some of the best practices that you're seeing? Like, what made you choose those schools in particular to share with us, Embry-Riddle and Fordham? What are they doing that you would suggest other schools might consider doing?
Sure. So I think one of the key things, and we've touched on it already, is what you're going to do with that information. So it's one thing to have it in the class notes section or on Tigers on the Move, but what's the next step with that then, if it is an interesting story, right? How do you get that out there? So how are you incorporating social media? And Dana pointed at some of the things that they do already. Or when do you decide to make it a feature on your homepage? So when I look at a website, what I love to see is an alumni feature somewhere on that alumni homepage. And I would assume oftentimes that is generated from class notes. In addition, if you're looking to drive class note traffic, even having a class note on the homepage and that call to action to submit your class note is a great way to drive traffic. So I think for me, it's really about the whole package. It's not just this standalone class note that somebody added, but okay, how are you bringing that all together to make an engaging platform for constituents, not just class note specific, but really across the board. So the more you can incorporate class notes into other aspects of your site, through alumni profiles, through an easy way to submit a class note, in your email communications, I think the better off you are and the more engaged your constituents will be with your site.
Definitely. For both Sarah and Dana, is there a note that's shared most often? Like, are you, and it might be different for both of your schools, is it mostly the career news? Is it, what are you seeing traffic-wise for your class notes? Like when you look at the different categories of what alumni are sharing, what seems to be most popular?
Well, for Fordham, obviously, we have a lot of weddings and birth announcements, but the other one is career. I feel like people are very proud of their promotions and their, they become a named partner in a law firm, and they're very anxious to share that with the Fordham community. So that is our most plentiful category, is careers. And then right behind that is honors and awards. When people get an award from their local community or from their place of business, they like to tell their Fordham classmates about it. So those are two of our more popular ones.
Dana, would you say the same?
Absolutely. We get more engagements and wedding announcements than anything, but that's just really that's one of those things that it seems every bride wants to get out there. We get a lot of beautiful babies, and we love that as well. But career news has been a really strong category for us, as well as that honors and awards. But we also do something at Clemson called Travelers, where, if you're familiar with Clemson very much, one of our famed traditions is our Tiger Rag. I wish I had one with me here, but if you go to Tigers on the Move, you'll see it. It's really basically an orange handkerchief that has a large tiger paw on it, and people, when they travel around the world, it's a huge tradition for them to have their photo taken in front of whatever iconic place they are at with their tiger rag. It also is very popular at weddings, so the wedding party will hold the tiger rags as well, and we get phone calls constantly asking us to send them tiger rags for those things, and of course we do what we can, but it's pretty well balanced. But I would say weddings and engagements are probably the most popular, right by the babies.
On the career connection piece, that leads me to the report that you put out, Staying Connected 2015, which really kind of talks about how you have an app that you work with, the Echo, then there's Clemson World, then you have Tigers on the Move. How do you make sure that everybody who's behind those different platforms is talking to each other, that there's similar messaging? Can you talk a little bit about those platforms?
Sure. Well, the same voice is fairly easy because it's always me. I'm sure most alumni associations are very much like ours, where staff is limited. So it's as the manager of all of our communications, I do have the pleasure of being able to be that voice for all the platforms. But we do try to make sure that we share as many of the same types of things across all the platforms, but in different ways. I think one of the most important things that we do is, if we have something that we want to share, we'll share it in a slightly different way on a different platform at a different time of day or a different day of the week or something along those lines, but making sure that the message remains the same, the branding remains the same, and that we are, utilizing content appropriately. You know, there are some platforms that are not going to be suitable for maybe a class notes feature, but we do see an uptick in our submissions on Tigers on the Move when we put it out on our social media on Tigers on the Move Tuesday, or when we send it out in the Echo every other Wednesday. But one of the best things I think we've ever done is utilize RSS feeds, because it is a major help to me, being one person. We use the RSS feeds, like I said, on Tigers on the Move, so we can share that platform to other areas like social media and the Echo. The Echo, which is our newsletter, is strictly made up of RSS feeds. So my programmers create it where it is pulling in content from every website of the university that has an RSS feed, and by one click of a button I can add that story to our newsletter. So we have changed the alumni newsletter from a traditional write a story for every topic to here's a picture, here's a teaser, here's a headline, and here's a click out to somewhere else on the web that will give you more information about that story. It cut down on the amount of time that I had to spend writing stories and going and finding stories, because it could take me 2 weeks just to write content, and then I wouldn't get anything else done. And on top of that, as you mentioned, we have our new app, which is also called the Echo. It is also built on RSS feeds, and so we have incorporated our college websites, our athletics website, the alumni website, Tigers on the Move, and all of our social feeds into a self-populating app that our alumni can download onto their phones in iTunes. And every time a new story is added to any of those pages, it is automatically fed into the app. So it is constantly new content. We don't have to build new content because it's already being built by contributors around the university. And we have the excitement of having our athletics on board and letting us pull their feeds in too, because I mean, Clemson is a great educational school, and we all are very proud of our degrees, but everybody loves their football too, so we have to make sure we get that in there as well.
Awesome. Well, before I move on to the next question, I just want to remind folks who are watching that if you have anything that your alma maters are doing, that your schools are doing, that you'd like us to share and highlight, or if you have any questions for Mirko or for Sarah or for Dana, please do tweet those using the hashtag HigherEdLive, because we do like to ask questions during the broadcast and really bring up some new examples as well. One thing that I think is important, and when we were talking about sharing class notes on a larger scale and putting them out on social and putting them out in the alumni magazine and elsewhere, do any of you have you looked at how those class notes might be tied to then alumni giving, whether if they've been featured as part of a story, or if they've shared something with you and then boom, all of a sudden it was on the main Clemson or Fordham website? Any are you, both of you, Sarah and Dana, tied into the fundraising side much?
We've looked at it a bit. We haven't seen much of a correlation. A lot of the times the people that we spotlight who have submitted a class note are they're people who give, but they were giving anyway, and so they're already engaged. They're already donating to the annual fund. We haven't really seen a spike after they've submitted anything, but sometimes when we take it to that next level and spotlight them in an e-newsletter or do a feature on them, it might incline them to give more regularly.
So from Clemson, we actually have started looking at this a little bit more than we had been. We had an instance where our development officers would find out some really great news about someone who they were wanting to target for donations, and they would let us know, hey, this person has been nominated for this or won this or has had this great opportunity. For instance, we had 2 gentlemen just recently who were named in the Forbes 30 under 30, and so we went ahead and we put them proactively on Tigers on the Move, and the development officer contacted them and said, hey, we've got you on our platform, we're sharing it out via the newsletter and on social media, just wanted to let you know. And so it started fostering a relationship there, and they were able to open new doors. We also found this. We don't have some of those celebrities that a lot of universities have, but we do have a few. Many of ours are athletes, but one of our great ones is Nancy O'Dell, who is on Entertainment Tonight. We started a new relationship with her just by sharing her news through our outlets as well, and now we have fostered a new relationship with her where she actually reaches out to us when she wants to tweet or do something special on social media about something with Clemson, and so we tie it in and we do little videos with her and we're able to share them. It also led up to a live chat with her that our alumni could join in on and ask her questions and participate in something that they never would have had an opportunity to do before. So we started opening doors just by sharing their information proactively, not necessarily with them asking us to do so. But we've also had a few who have gone out on Tigers on the Move and shared their updates, and we had no idea that they were doing these amazing things. We had a movie producer in Hollywood that we had no idea we had, and he shared with us on Tigers on the Move that his movie was, launching. And so a development officer, they very much keep a close eye on Tigers on the Move just to see what might be coming through. And so a development officer was able to reach out to them, and now he's come back to campus and just fostering new relationships because we are letting the world know what they have going on.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Mirko, you must hear that often from clients that you work with, how what they're sharing and what they're hearing from their alumni ends up translating into relationships. I mean, that's what this is what our work is, right? It's building relationships.
Exactly. So, I mean, anything that can be done to get closer to somebody, right? Whether it's even just recognizing that they submitted a class note and making that follow-up call or whatever it may be. Any way that you choose to. Obviously, you're not going to follow up with every single person, but if you look at wealth screening or past giving history or whatever it may be, and you see that, oh, this person actually just submitted a class note, let's get it to their major gift officer and make them aware, or the annual fund team if they're the leadership level donors, or whatever it is. Yeah, I mean, I think the more this information can be shared across the division, as opposed to even just staying within either just the alumni relations piece of it or even a subset of that piece, again, depending on how each institution is structured, the greater the better.
Oh, I think we might be losing Mirko's connection a tiny bit.
Are you speaking German?
Yeah. he's either speaking his native tongue in Germany or we're losing him. Oh, dear. That's what happens when we're thousands and thousands of miles apart. Mirko, can you just repeat what you said there? We did lose you for a bit.
Can you hear me okay now?
We can, yes.
Okay. How much did you hear?
It really was only the last, say, 30 seconds of it. It was just a little bit that it...
Okay, perfect. All right, so basically, just the more that you can work with the development team, and certainly what Clemson and Fordham both do, I think the more opportunity there is.
So, Dana, you touched on this a little bit in that it's easy to have one voice because you are the voice. And Sarah, I'm sure it's similar in your shop where we are stretched a bit thin on our responsibilities. So how do you manage all that? I mean, Dana, you had said, Tuesdays is the day that you highlight Tigers on the Move on social media. How do you find, is it every day you're doing class notes approvals? Is it you devote a little time on Thursdays to doing it? Sarah, I'll start with you and then move to Dana about just finding, like, I feel like all the time we get this great stuff and it's like, oh, I wish I had time to do this. It's just the story that I think we echo the same feelings on it.
Yeah, I find myself doing a little bit every day just to keep on top of it. So I check the site every day just because we don't get a real surge of updates, but a few every day. And then I can kind of spend a little bit of time working with my partner in marketing to see what we want to do, adding them to a list, for potential speaking opportunities, just kind of categorizing them as they come across the wire. So I find that for me, because the volume isn't that overwhelming, I do a little bit every day.
Perfect. Dana, would you say the same?
I do. I try to stay on top of it as much as I can. The thing that is my saving grace is the auto email that gets sent to me every time a new submission is entered. And so if I can't do it at that given moment, I have my email where it sort of sorts them into a place where I know I can just go back and find them all and review them all at one time. But most of the time I try to stay on top of it. It's actually easily accessible on my phone as well, so if I'm on the go, I can very easily update them then. But I do try to stay on top of it because, just like Sarah said, if you let it go, it's going to consume you over time.
So the question where I find having a lot of trouble in finding the time is, so I don't know if your schools are similar. I know many different schools and colleges within our university, and they're my alumni, I want to know what's going on with my alumni only, and I want to share that in my newsletter. How do you work with the my's of the world, the schools and colleges who want to know only what their alumni are doing? Are they doing their own magazines as well?
Not at Fordham.
Sorry, Sarah.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Some of our colleges do their own magazines. However, they are very well aware that basically the extent to which Tigers on the Move and the Echo newsletter can help share that news. So I actually have a submission process every other week for the newsletter. So if my colleges want to share something about their alumni, they send that to me. They have a deadline every week, and they provide me with the picture of the headline and the teaser and the link to go out to. So they very much know that we have a much broader audience, and in many cases our colleges are very, they're understanding that their college graduates are very important to them, but those who are either graduates of other colleges or parents of students or even those who are just fans who follow the Alumni Association can have an impact on them if there is a story that is important enough to in some way embrace them and they want to be a part of that. Sharing that news with those people outside of that traditional pocket of just their alumni helps them expand their brand even more. But they will send me things to add on Tigers on the Move, or they will actually submit it themselves for some of their news, and of course they have the opportunity to submit it to the magazine just as we all do.
Was it difficult to get them on board with that? I mean, and then Sarah, I definitely want to hear your thoughts as well, but the whole idea, we're trying now so hard to get to one university and not so many different messages going out. Was that a process, or was it pretty easy to say, listen, if you want to be in our newsletter, every 2 weeks it goes out, here's what you have to do? Did it take a little while, or was it relatively easy?
Well, it started before I came. However, it started from a very different place. So we had a situation several years ago, and I'm sure all of you have had this at some point or another, where everyone had access to the database. So they could email anyone they wanted to about anything at any point in time that they wanted to email them. And then we started having situations where there was much overlap. People were emailing wrong colleges. They were not building queries correctly. We were losing contact with alumni left and right because they were opting out. And so my predecessor had the great forethought to come up with a new system where since we own and manage the database as an alumni association, that we would be those protectors of that data. And so now there is a form process where if they want to email them and they want to send an e-newsletter, they have to actually go through our processes, and we send it on their behalf. They actually no longer have access to the data. Now that was hard. That took a lot. But when you start explaining to them CAN-SPAM Act laws and the fines that they are opened up to, where if people don't, if they think they've opted out of Clemson University and they've only opted out of this small department's newsletter, they can come back to the university and say, well, I don't care if it was just that department, it still came from the university. I told you not to email me, so now you're liable for that fine. Once you tell them there's $16,000 on their head out there, they are very quick to say, okay, let's do it that way. But it began to transition them to understanding the value of alumni communication and realizing that, we have this newsletter that's going every other week. The open rates are typically anywhere from 20 to 25%, which is pretty good for 90,000 plus email addresses.
Right.
We have great engagement on so many levels across the board of all of our different platforms. They just realized that it was a great opportunity for them to stretch their message. And we, too, are trying. We actually have an initiative right now called One Clemson, where colleges, all the departments, athletics, alumni, development, everyone is working together to, share that same brand message. And I think as we continue to grow as a university, we're about to become 7 colleges from 5 colleges. Everybody understands how important it is to be very clear in those communications, and it's amazing to see everybody come together and be on board.
That's fantastic. Sarah, what would you say your experience has been on that front?
Well, so we're really fortunate in that our marketing department falls under development and university relations. So, they are really instrumental in telling those other schools and departments, no, you can't do your own offshoot newsletter. You have to do it, with the university newsletter. Or no, you can't have your own magazine. You're part of the overarching magazine. So they're sort of our gatekeepers because they're the ones who are in charge of the content and also have the relationships with the other representatives of the schools and departments. So that's really lucky for us. We also have our own project manager for email marketing. So she works directly with alumni relations and the other offices when it comes to e-newsletters and things of that sort. Because that's where it gets a little bit sticky. Every school wants to have their own e-newsletter, and everyone's content is more important than the other person's. So she kind of reins everybody in and says, no, we do this once a month. Submit your content, and we'll do our best to get it in. So having marketing under our umbrella has really helped us to sort of unify all of the schools into kind of one brand and one mode of communication.
That's awesome. We had a question which we touched base on at the very beginning of the episode. So for Catherine, who's watching, hi Catherine, thank you. She wanted to hear how for Dana and for Sarah, how do you each collaborate with the Alumni Magazine to make sure that the news is shared? And then maybe Mirko, is there the best practice that you hear from your clients on that? Something that's worked extraordinarily well. For us, it's that our magazine editor has the login information, his own login into iMod, so he can read everything and then pull it out as he's putting the magazine together. So just real quick for Catherine, how do you collaborate with the editors of your main magazine, your print magazine? Sorry, you want to go first?
Sure. So similarly, our editors also have login access to iMods, so they see the class notes and any other information that comes in that way. And we sit on the same floor. We sit next to each other. So
right.
I'm constantly walking by them to go to the water cooler and saying, hey, did you see about such and such? So just that constant communication between the departments is super helpful. And they, sometimes we're getting information that they don't have access to and vice versa. So, having meetings monthly and seeing, drafts of the magazine before they go to print, it is, one way that we can all kind of get the best product out there and engage the right people.
And Dana?
So our editor is, very finds communication with every department very important. So she has a meeting once a quarter when she's starting to prepare the magazine with each of us individually to talk about what we have. The Alumni Association has 4 dedicated pages that is outside of class notes. So I actually prepare all of the things that I think have been of value over the last few months to give to her. In many cases, like this upcoming issue, will be our award ceremonies and our ring ceremony and things like that happen, every spring. But we also have a section that is dedicated to development marketing, and so there's just a few of us who have dedicated pages. We submit the information to her and help her write it out, but she's really good about making sure that she keeps us included in all of the proofing and editing and that sort of thing as well, along with the auto packaging of Tigers on the Move that gets sent to her every time an approval happens when a class note is added.
That's great. Mirko, anything that you've heard from your clients that, oh, this worked so well for us, we're getting them this way, we're sending them that way, we've done a Google Drive document, anything you've heard on your end that you can share? Oh, no. Oh.
What I'll do is I'll talk about the, can you hear me?
Yes. Now we
Okay.
can. You went black as soon as you were about to answer, but now you're there.
Okay, so I think Sarah and Dana have touched on good approaches. Apologies for the fact that I'm in Germany. But what I wanted to do is take the
Uh-oh. Well, we've lost, sort of lost Mirko. I think Mirko's frozen on us. Oh, looks like you're back now. Sorry about this.
No, it's my fault. So
Okay.
magazine editors that are less positive about online class notes and maybe hesitant to have a push for class notes by the institution. So I working with them and sharing some of those great stories that you're getting through online submissions, and it's going to take some hand-holding, I think, at the beginning, but what I've seen is long-term they then come around and really see it as value added, and even taking some of the weight off of them of being the only ones to generate that class notes content. So I think some things to keep in mind, but really it's that close working relationship with the magazine that is going to help a lot. But
Well, and remembering, too, that a lot of our alumni, especially the readers of the magazine, I would say, and I don't want to generalize too much, but they're not hopping online to read these class notes. They're waiting until they get their nice shiny copy of the alumni magazine. They can't wait to see what happened in the class of 87 or 97 or 2007. And even being a relatively young alumna myself, I still love to flip to the back and read those class notes. So, remembering that, yeah, we can have all these fancy things online, but also at the end of the day, it is nice in this day and age of everything being digital to have that little hard copy in your hands. So I think it's important to remember those alumni as well. All right, well, I think we are about 45 minutes into our episode. Our Twitter audience we have a ton of viewers, but they are a quiet bunch today. It just means that you guys are answering all their questions without them even having to ask, and that's a good thing. But this is neat. This is really where we get to learn from each other, see what other schools are doing. And I would say before we wrap up this afternoon's episode, is there anything that I didn't touch on, or anything that any of you, Dana or Sarah or Mirko in Germany, wanted to add to the conversation before we go about our Tuesday afternoons?
Well, I'd just like to ask Dana, if you don't mind, has there been any talk internally about getting rid of the class notes section in the magazine and doing it strictly online?
No, not at this point. We still find a lot of value in that print version of it, and it doesn't take up as much space as it had in the past because we do have the supplement. But it kind of leads into what I was going to add here, making sure that everyone takes into consideration all of your audiences. Because like us, we have people who graduated in 2015, but we also have people still with us who graduated in 1938. Mm-hmm. So, we have to make sure that we're still meeting their personal communication needs and not leaving any one audience out. So I think there's a lot of value in creating something digital that touches those people who never put down their phones and always want to get their information up to the second, not even up to the minute anymore. But we still have those amazing alumni who like to flip those pages, and they want that thing to come in their mailbox and have that exciting moment to read everything about their alma mater. And so that's really the main thing that I like to try to keep in mind, is that we just have to make sure that we're not leaving a certain audience out just to create the coolest, neatest, most exciting thing out there. And we're still meeting those communication needs.
We did a survey about 8 years ago asking people to weigh in on how engaged they felt, and some people who lived outside of the tri-state area who maybe didn't feel so engaged, they felt engaged because they got the magazine.
Wow.
They didn't come to events. We didn't go on our presidential roadshow to their city, but because they got the magazine those 2 to 4 times a year, they felt connected to the university. So I agree, Dana, it's still super important to have that physical component.
Awesome. Mirko, any parting words from Germany before we say, what is it, Auf Wiedersehen? I don't know, I don't speak German.
The only thing I would add is just to think about all of the ways that you can collect class note information. So you could have it on update contact information form right at the bottom and just ask what's new with you.
Right.
And then do that or whatever it may be. I think there's a wealth of opportunity to find other ways to encourage people to submit class note information rather than just the typical, okay, click on class notes and go there, or email the magazine or whatever it is. And that will help you gain a lot more traction and, again, make it just more engaging for people.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank Dana. I know you said you have your 4 biggest events of the year coming up. And is that what you said?
My 3 biggest events in 4 days.
Holy moly. Wow. And Mirko is obviously, it's what, 7:50 p.m. where Mirko is, so you're winding down your day. And Sarah, thank you too for just taking an hour out to have this conversation. I learned a ton. I am envious of both you, Sarah, and Dana, and what your sites are able to do. But we're new iMods clients, so we're getting there. Yes, and we're excited for that. So thank you again to the sponsors of our episode this afternoon. We had both iModules and, of course, M. Stoner. And thank you to Dana, to Mirko, and to Sarah for taking your hour with us, and to everyone who followed along on Twitter with us today as well. We really appreciate you, as always, being our viewers. And we will see you on the next episode. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.